Welcome back, everybody. I hope you're all excellent. Today, we're taking a look at AXFX 3 Firmware 13.03. I want to show you a bunch of the new features, as well as how you can use these new features in context. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about the Headroom parameter, because this is brand new to Firmware 13, and I want to show off one of my go-to presets built around the Recto 1 Orange Modern. This is what it sounds like where I dialed it in on a previous firmware. I'm in Drop C. We have this rectifier model. I have the precision drive tightening everything up, and the cab that I'm using is one of my own. This one's on Axe Change, as always. So watch the headroom meter and you'll notice that it is getting close to 0, but it's never touching it. All right, so what this does is it is basically showing us how close the power amp is to distorting. If you are going for a big, thick, modern, tight, high gain sound, you don't want power amp distortion, but you do still want a little bit of power amp color, because check this out. If I go to channel C here, exactly the same settings, except I have turned the master volume on the amp down one. You'll notice the headroom is a lot lower, and the character of the distortion, I don't know, to me it kind of sounds a little bit more just straight up like a preamp or a distortion pedal. It is just a little bit bright and harsh. And I did account for the change in level by turning the level parameter up there. I mean, it's close, it's definitely tight, but you lose some of the character. So let me flop back and forth between those. And it's always a bit of a fine line, you know, that channel B to me has a lot more character. It's not quite as tight, but there's just a richness to it that I really, really like, and that is going to record really well. Let's have a listen to, this kind of sound when we really crank the master volume up, and you'll see the headroom gets all the way up, so the power amp is going to start distorting. Totally different character to it. Now, I don't think any of those necessarily sound bad, but my preference is definitely B, where the power amp is kind of like getting close. It's tickling the thought of power amp distortion, but it's not quite getting there. Something like a rectifier, I don't think the power amp distortion is particularly pleasant. It does kind of pump up the mids, but the low end gets really mushy in there, and having the master too lows is kind of going to be a little bit fizzy and bright. Now, if you're using something like a Plexi or a Fender amps in the real world that don't have master volumes, they're actually generating their distortion by power amp distortion. That is the characteristic thing about something like a Marshall Plexi. That's why they have to be so loud in the real world. So this headroom, it's not a one size fits all. If you find that you're going for a kind of really high gain, tight, modern sound, use this to give you visual feedback about whether you are or aren't distorting the power amp. If you are, you might want to try turn the master volume down and compensate with the level. That might get rid of any perceived muddiness, but it's not a thing like where you shouldn't or should be clipping in there. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. Again, use your ears and not your eyes, and if your ears aren't super happy, use this to maybe give you a bit of visual feedback about, like I said, the power amp distortion. Another good example, let me switch to my main live preset. I really like the Mark series amps. Don't worry about all this stuff down here. That's for bass. We run guitar and bass through one AXFX for everything. And you'll see here, I have a multi-band compressor and a bunch of other things going on here, but this is just kind of where I dialed it in, and you'll notice that it's quite a tight, articulate distortion sound, and there's a little bit of headroom left on this meter right here. So that's how I use the headroom parameter. Here's how to set up a global volume pedal as well as the tuner on heel down function together. I like using these two together because basically it's set and forget across all of your presets. Let's go to setup and we'll go to MIDI remote. What we're going to do is basically scroll all the way across to this menu where you can see tempo tap, tuner, and then tuner on heel down. I'm going to set that to the relevant pedal. The FC controller that I'm using is an FC6, and in pedal jack number 2, I have an expression pedal. So I've set it to FC1 pedal 2 right there. Then if we scroll down, I can set up my input volume. I've set input 1 volume to FC1 pedal 2. So that controller is acting as my global volume pedal, and then when I go heel down on that pedal, which I'll do now, I know you can't see it, the tuner comes on. So toe down, everything's hunky-dory, all the way down, I have the tuner on, and that is a global assignment. There's some more cool stuff on firmware 13 that has been requested by users for quite a while. If you go to the global settings over here and you scroll across, we have a global EQ on output 1, output 2, output 3, and output 4. I've got them all disabled at the moment, but you can actually select between a graphic and a parametric EQ, which I think is super awesome if you want that instant tweakability. Say you take your Axe effects into a particular room and you need to make some global adjustments on the EQ, you can do it with either a graphic or a parametric EQ now, which is super handy. The multi-tap delay got some love in this update. The levels of the individual delays now support modifier support, and what I think is really cool and a feature that I requested, so I'm obviously super stoked that it got added, is there is a master chorus rate and master chorus depth, which also support modifier control. So I love using this block to basically take a set of delay lines, so delay 1 and delay 2, really short delays, and then adding chorus to them. I can basically just set the rates that I like, set the depths to 100%, and then I can use this master depth to basically just, save me time. I don't have to tweak depth 1 and depth 2. I can just tweak them together. Then delay 3 and 4 are set up as a dotted eighth note and a quarter note delay, but I've done this as well. I have set up FC1 pedal 1 to basically turn the levels of, say, delay 3 and 4 up, and while they do that, they turn down the choruses. I've also set it up so that the overdrive parameter on my amp block is going to turn up and down, so that I can basically go heel down is going to be my full-on distorted lead sound, and as I push the toe down, the amp is going to clean up, and this multi-tap delay is going to morph from a lead delay to a chorus, and because it's on a controller which is going to support a bunch of values, I can kind of morph between them. So I'll show you what that sounds like. Heel down is the lead sound. That's so cool. I don't need to use scenes. I don't need to use a foot switch. I could set that up so that in the middle, I've kind of got a rhythm sound, which is medium gain with a bit of chorus and a bit of delay. All the way forward is a lot cleaner with chorus, and all the way down is my full-on lead guitar scene. This is a kind of rough attempt. I'm going to spend a bunch of time refining this, but if you want the preset, I will post it up on Axe Change so that you can play around with it. I think I already posted it over on the forum. But that just, the multi-tap delay block is just such a powerful, magnificent block. You can do so much with it. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. If just the multi-tap delay came in a stomp box, it would probably be the best delay or chorus stomp box ever, because you can do so much with it. You can add comb filtering and ring modulation to the delay lines. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I love using the multi-tap delay, and it's got even better in this firmware. Let's finish off by stacking some drives. In the last video I did, I looked at individual drives and selected a few favorites. If you haven't seen that video, check it out on the channel. But let's look at stacking some of those favorite drives together. So I'll just kind of run you through what I've got going on here at the moment. I just have the Band Commander model at the stock settings. It's a really good clean out. I'm on the split mode of the neck pickup on this PRS DGT. Sounds like this. The Tone of Kings is my go-to for bluesy drives. Very, very nice. I also really like the OCD low mode, so compulsion distortion LP sounds like this. That one has a bit more of a kind of martially grind to it. And lots of people have been asking, where's the clone? Well, I'm going to show you my clone settings in here. I have a pedal by Anarchy Audio called the Workhorse pedal, which is a clone, and I cloned that clone using the FET Boost drive. Basic trick is go to the advanced settings, set the clip type to germanium, go to the tone and set the high cut at around, where's that, 6300 hertz. I turn the low cut up a little bit, bump a little bit of mid-range, and there's some, oh, there's actually no graphic EQ action going on in here. All right, cool, that's it. This is what that does. That one does it for me as well. So 3 of my favorite drives. Let's kind of look at some different ways we can stack them into one another. One is to take this OCD LP, and I'll go to the bridge pickup and go for kind of a rock thing because we're going to slam that workhorse setting into this. So I'll start with the OCD, then we'll do workhorse settings into the OCD. That's really cool. On the humbucker modes, it just has enough kind of compression and saturation in there to really make you want to dig in. And on the single coil modes, it's still got a bit of that snap to it. All right, let's go to scene 6 in this preset because I've got the Tone of Kings, slightly different settings, a little bit easier on the drive, level cranked up going into the same OCD settings. Let's hear that. I'll be on the neck pickup. That one kind of gets a little bit, I don't know, it just gets really saturated. It really does sound like 2 drive pedals slamming into one another. On scene 7, I'll turn it around the other way. So this is OCD into Tone of Kings. Let's hear that. So you can hear, taking essentially the same drive settings and swapping them around, I've got the Tone of Kings on channel A here and the compulsion on channel D here, whereas on scene 6, what do we got? Yeah, we do have them in the opposite order. Totally different results. This is really fun to experiment with, really fun to play around with and kind of craft your own custom tones. Now there is the high version of the OCD included in this firmware. So what we can do is we can hear that. So compulsion, distortion, HP. I'll go to the bridge pickup again. And then what I'll do is I will stack the LP mode into it in front. So I have this LP ready to go here. Let's hear. That one's pretty fun as well. Let's hear the difference between the workhorse, the tone of kings, and the OCD, and then the workhorse into the OCD, kind of in the context of a track. And I really like the stacked mode for solos just because it gives you that extra little bit of sizzle and sustain. It makes everything a whole lot easier to play. I'll label everything and just kind of listen out for any tiny little differences in, I guess, the distortion character, especially the low end. And I mean, I can't really communicate the feel, but they all do feel and react really differently as well. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I hope you learned something. Go and grab this firmware from FractalBot, from the Fractal website, or from the forum. If you want to support the channel, you can become a patron on my Patreon and grab some exclusive content, which I'll be updating regularly. Alternatively, you can buy some of my music, which is also linked below. If you have any further questions, let me know in the comments. Until next time, stay excellent. I'll see you then.